Before we begin, pause for just a moment. Are you the kind of person who listens for what isn't being said? If you're drawn to stories that don't rush to explain themselves, stories that unfold patiently, revealing truth layer by layer. Stories where silence speaks louder than words and every choice leaves a mark. Then take a second to subscribe to this channel. Because what you're about to hear isn't simply a story. It's an unraveling. A slow, deliberate pulling apart of certainty. A journey into the quiet spaces where trust and fear often sit side by side. So settle in. Lower the lights. Let the noise of the world fade away. This story doesn't hurry. It waits. But the question is, are you willing to wait with it? The mountains were silent long before we arrived. Not the kind of silence people romanticize. The peaceful, gentle, quiet you see in postcards or travel brochures. This was older, heavier. A deep, ancient stillness that felt aware of us. The kind of silence that sharpens your senses, that makes you conscious of your own breathing, your own thoughts, the quiet weight of every decision you've ever made. It pressed against the windows of our car as we climbed higher into the Cascades. The road narrowed with every mile, curling through dense forest like a thought you can't quite shake. Tall pines crowded close, their dark outlines forming a corridor that felt less like a path forward and more like an entrance. As if something had been waiting. I watched the trees blur past, their branches heavy with early snow, and felt a strange tightening in my chest, an emotion I couldn't immediately name. It wasn't fear exactly, and it wasn't excitement either. It was awareness. And in that moment, I asked myself a question I wouldn't have an answer to for a very long time. Was I walking towards something, or was something finally allowing me to see? My name is Megan Harper. I'm 35 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed I understood the man sitting beside me in the driver's seat, Adrian Harper. For 8 years, we had built a marriage that looked solid from the outside. Stable, reliable, the kind of relationship people nodded approvingly at when they heard about it. 8 years of shared routines, shared plans, shared evenings that blended together into something comfortable and familiar. We didn't fight much. We didn't drift apart the way some couples do, slowly and without noticing. Instead, we existed in a constant state of quiet intensity, as if our relationship was always leaning forward, waiting. I used to think that tension meant passion, that the subtle electricity between us was a sign of depth. I didn't yet understand what it was preparing me for. Do you know that feeling when you realize the person next to you is holding their breath? I was just starting to. Adrian had always been difficult to describe to people who didn't know him well. Charismatic felt too simple. Attractive didn't explain the way rooms seemed to subtly rearrange themselves around his presence. When Adrian entered a space, conversation softened. Eyes followed, attention bent in his direction without anyone consciously deciding to give it. He was 38, though he wore his age lightly, as if time negotiated with him rather than claimed him outright. His dark hair was always neatly styled. His clothes carefully chosen, never flashy, never excessive, just deliberate. Everything about Adrian was deliberate. He worked as an event planner in Seattle, though even that description never felt quite accurate. Adrian didn't simply organize gatherings. He orchestrated experiences. He understood atmosphere the way musicians understand sound, lighting, timing, anticipation. He treated them like instruments, each one capable of shifting emotion in subtle, almost invisible ways. Clients sought him out not just for weddings or galas, but for moments they wanted remembered. Proposals, reunions, private celebrations layered with meaning. Adrian knew how to make people feel something. And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with that ability. But the same qualities that made him captivating also made him unreadable. Adrian thrived in implication. He enjoyed leaving things unsaid, letting meaning linger in the air, letting curiosity do the work for him. And I, perhaps foolishly, trusted him completely. But here's the thing about curiosity. It can lead you to wonder, or it can lead you into a trap. Seattle had been the backdrop of our marriage, a city of rain and reflection, of gray skies and warm interiors. Our apartment overlooked streets that shimmered after storms, the pavement catching light like broken glass. Below us, the city was always moving, always searching. Inside our home, we had built a life that felt insulated from chaos, quiet, intimate. Yet, even during our calmest evenings, there was always an undercurrent, a sense that something was waiting just beyond reach. Adrian liked it that way. He once told me that comfort was overrated, that real growth only happened at the edge of certainty. I remember laughing when he said it, assuming it was just another one of his philosophical moods. Now those words echo differently. The trip had been his idea, a secluded mountain retreat, he said. A place far from distractions, somewhere we could disconnect. When he told me about it, his eyes held that familiar spark, the one that suggested surprise, transformation, something carefully planned. "This will be unlike anything we've done before," he'd said quietly, his voice calm and assured. At the time, excitement drowned out the faint whisper of unease rising in my chest. It wasn't until I started packing that the questions began to surface. "This isn't just us, is it?" I asked, folding sweaters into my suitcase. Adrian leaned against the doorway, watching me with a smile that revealed nothing. "I've invited a few people." "How many?" "A small group." "Who?" He crossed the room and gently brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was familiar, grounding. "Trust me, Meg." He always knew when to use my nickname. I nodded even as my instincts stirred because I did trust him. I always had. But that is the moment I should have stopped and asked myself. Trust him to do what, exactly? The drive into the mountains felt like crossing an invisible threshold. Cell service faded. The road twisted tighter, clinging to cliffs and valleys dusted with snow. The forest grew denser, more imposing. Adrian drove with quiet focus, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting on my thigh, warm, reassuring. Every so often, he glanced at me, a knowing expression playing at the corner of his mouth. "You're thinking too much," he said softly. "Am I?" "Yes," he replied. "And you're not supposed to." I frowned slightly. I've already thought it through. That answer should have unsettled me more than it did. Ahead of us, the road disappeared into the trees. And I couldn't shake the feeling that once we entered, we weren't just leaving the city behind. We were leaving everything we knew.